What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on my Sketchy Goodness with, as always, the amazing Keith, my Sketchy Goodness Groucho.
Hello.
How's it going today, Keith?
Good. Today was like the first day I actually was able to work on some projects that required me to draw. I haven't really. I mean, I've been doing a bit of drawing this week, but it feels like I've just had a bunch of meetings. So
Oh,
yeah. So today's like been the day I actually got to focus on like doing sequentials, which is fun.
interesting. Okay, well, I hope the meetings are going well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Perfect. And I'm glad to hear, hopefully, it was not related to the CC, which I was trying not to invoke, but just prior to our going
Oh
live, you
yeah.
said Concrud, a very common affliction for any who go to conventions in a working capacity, um, which is just a whole thing. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you're not experiencing it. Um, yeah. So today is we are. Oh my God, it's when? No, it's Thursday. Jeez, it's Thursday already. So we're what now? 4 days post Toronto Comic Con. Um, uh, Thanks to our mutual friend Howard Wong, I was able to go all day on Saturday, and you yourself, of course, tabled right along Howard. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how to exactly jump into this subject, but I will start by saying this. On the show now, we have talked a few times about how to do cons, specifically from like the perspective of a comic book creator, how to pitch to people, how to do sales to people. And again, that sounds so corporate, I guess is the language I'll use, when realistically we've sort of talked about like the ways in which you can engage with people as they walk by and sort of eye your table, to actually get them to not just walk by and look at something and go, oh, that looks cool, but to actually go up to it and be like, hey, what is this thing? um, After talking about it with you so much and seeing you from the aisle, getting to now sit beside you and like watch you do this, I have to say, one, I highly enjoyed it,
Mhm.
and I love how in practice you put everything we talked about. So for the folks out there watching live, whether you're with us live now or perhaps you're catching us in the future, one, how's the future doing? I hope all is well. And two, go watch our previous episodes where we've talked about that kind of stuff. Oh, Mitch Cook dropped in just for a goofy smiley face. How's it going, Mitch?
Might as well. Hey, bud. Might as well share my screen, shouldn't I?
Yes,
Start
yeah.
drawing already. Start drawing already, because
Oh, jeez.
why not?
But yeah, it was really cool to get to see in practice. Here we go. Let's get that on screen. Okay, that's cool. I'm liking the white instead of the like the flip of the white paper on instead of the black. That's cool. But yeah, it was super cool to get to see you like do your thing, pitch people, sort of pass your book to people so that they would hold it, um, and just yeah, your finesse with it. I also, one thing we don't talk about that I wanted to mention was, or we haven't talked about, is your control, and allowing people to, you know, very well when to stop and allow people to just sort of take in what you've handed them and what they're looking at.
Hmm.
Um, Very specifically for me, I remember like when I lived in Hong Kong and I worked as a salesperson there. One of the people that was sort of giving me tips and sort of mentoring me, one of my favorite moments and things I'll probably remember for the rest of my life with them was I was on the phone with a potential customer, um, and I was giving like a pitch, and I'd modified the pitch a bit just because it was me learning. But I hit a point where I had asked the person, "So blah blah blah, is this the plan you want?" And the guy that was mentoring me, he was sat across from me, he was looking at me, and he did this to me. He was just like, and I'm
Yep.
like, and then sure enough, a couple seconds pass, and then the guy was like, "Yeah, let's go for it." And then the other person, Carlo was his name. He was like, "All right." But yeah, you also have extremely good control of when to stop the pitch, when to let the person sit with it, and I just thought that
Yeah.
was really frankly impressive. Um, yeah.
That's a lot of uh it's skill, right? Like you're essentially having to, it's a balance of knowing what you need to say, so you're not like going off of a script and thinking about what you need to say while you're not really paying attention to the person in front of you, right? So when you
Mm,
first learn what you need to say, that's probably what you're doing. You're probably thinking to yourself, okay, did I say this? Good. Did I say this? Okay, great. But because you're focusing on the things you're supposed to say, you're not focusing on, the little micro expressions people might be giving you, which is their eyes are looking over somewhere else. Do they feel like they're just like losing interest? Does it look like they want to say something to you, right? So it's that kind of ability to go, okay, I know what I need to say. I practiced it so many times, and now I can say it, and then just instinctually look at the person and go, am I losing them? Are they wanting me to say something different to them? Do I need to pivot from what I'm saying about this comic to another comic? And that's the kind of thing that you'll get really good at if you feel really confident in your pitch, right? And the pitch is really the hardest thing. As I've said before, it's anybody walking by your table, hey, how are you doing? Hand them the book and then go into the pitch, and the pitch is figuring out what is the thing that's going to hook somebody, right? What is the first the one or two sentences that you can use that will get somebody to go, ooh, that sounds kind of interesting. So, and then you can kind of go and say a little bit more about it. And I mean, and it's a numbers game for sure, but um not everybody that comes by my table is interested. Sometimes people are very polite and they will be like, thank you for telling me. I'm not going to get anything today, but I appreciate your time. And I always appreciate that. I think that um, people just giving, I understand their time is precious, my time is precious. So I appreciate that. Oftentimes people will, uh, you can read somebody um, by looking at who they're with and what they're wearing and the type. I don't judge necessarily on like their race and culture and stuff. That's just something that um I've learned is garbage. People I've learned over the years, I've had there was a time when there was a certain kind of stereotype of a person that read comic books, and that was over 20 years ago. Somebody that looked like me. Uh, I think everybody I have had all different types of people buy from me, and if I made a judgment ahead of time, going, oh, they're not my customer, I would be, really excluding a lot of people that surprised me, right? And no, and I really don't get surprised anymore because now I've seen pretty much every type of person get a book from me. Um, but you read people and you kind of go, okay, they're okay. This couple, they've got a kid. This kid is maybe around 10 or 11. I've got a comic book written by an 11-year-old. That's a good hook, and I'll throw that out at them. Or they've got a little baby and go, I've got a comic for kids that my mom and I collaborated on, and that's a good hook, right? Or if they're wearing like they've got like horror tattoos, or like they're wearing like a horror type shirt, I go, I've got a couple of sci-fi horror, or I've got a horror fantasy anthology. I've got a sci-fi horror ongoing series. So like those are the types of things you can kind of use as your gauge for what people may be interested in. Um, and like another thing you can do is you ask questions. If and I sometimes get bored with just like going, hey, I'm Keith and this is my comic. I like to go, hey, are you guys into comic books? Or just asking people questions, curious about, it's your first time at a show, you look like you're like really kind of like starstruck by everything. Yeah, and so it'll just be dependent on my mood at any given moment. But generally, you want to be able to like read what their mood is like. If they seem like somebody that is very, maybe it's overwhelming for them, you may not want to have big energy with them. you may want to pull your energy back a little bit. Whereas if it's people that, seem like they're looking already at your table, you can give them that energy, right? So there's all different things. You need to learn how to project what you're saying. You have to be able to say it from across, like, you have like a certain amount of space that is your space. So you have to be careful about this. But let's say, you have quite a wide walkway, and people are just kind of like walking by, not in front of your table, but like almost 2 or 3 feet away. Like, as long as you're not uh, uh, taking somebody who may be looking at the other way at the table across from you. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. You have to be careful about that. But if they're in your space, you go, hey, and you project your voice and make sure they can hear what you're saying clearly. And as you saw when you were there, we had music playing. And what's that? I can't hear you. Your sound is out. I can keep on talking because he can hear me. We can't hear him, I don't believe. But yeah, we had just kind of set up the scene for the show. I was uh, against the wall, so I didn't have anybody, that I had to worry about behind me. And then in front of me, I was kind of in the there was like a walkway. Oh,
Yep.
there we go. So there
I'm
was a
back.
walkway that meant that right in front of me there was no table, so I could pull anybody I wanted that was in front. I was kind of lucky
Yeah.
in that way. But that's not always the case. Um, and so yeah, those are all the little things that you start to learn. And the biggest thing, and this is one of the things that I have to try to remember, that it's not about them buying from me now. It could be down the line, right?
Yep.
But and I'm gonna say that I have like certain rules when it comes to people coming to my table that I invite over, which are that if I'm inviting them over, then um, they have a right to tell me things about them, that they want to talk to me about things, they want to ask me questions. And I used to be really kind of like, you're not going to buy for me, okay, next, right? So now I because I like to mentor people and make sure our community is strong. And if you're really wanting to be part of this community, I want to encourage that. So anybody I invite over to my table, for the most part, it's as long as we're aware of our, um, like why we're there, right? I invite that too. Like, if you have questions about how to create comics or be in the industry, I want to be able to chat with you. If you're just talking about your life, I want to be able to have a good conversation. Like, it doesn't have to be purely about me selling, right?
Yeah.
It could be about just, you know we're all in this together, and let's appreciate that. And those kinds of conversations are very meaningful to me as well, because I take that kind of love and empathy from people, and it makes me feel good. So it's just um, and you're in front of my table. I want to have a great
Hmm.
experience, whatever that form is. But as you saw, I also am there to sell.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, one of the cool things that I really enjoyed was um, the young gentleman who came up, and he had like a full done pitch script. I'd
Mhm.
asked, like, at the time, I'd asked a bit afterward, um, if this was the person you sort of previously mentioned. But basically, from what I understand, is this person had either on the Friday or some other time reached out to you, been like, "Hey, can I come by and ask some questions?" And then they had come to you with very specific questions, with like a done pitch script, and the thing was
Mhm.
just, from what I gathered, was just basically, is this thing good? And then you flipped through it. You gave him some quick, easy feedback that was very, from what I gleaned and understood of it, it sounded, one, direct to the point, effective, and in every way helping them to get to, pitch better, or whatever
it is that they were asking about. And I thought that was super cool. Um, I also think, and I never thought about this as like clientele, um, but I loved the amount of teachers that were there coming by, like that were teaching younger kids and were looking for stuff for sort of their like classroom libraries. Um, and just, yeah, the amount of stuff that you have that is kid friendly and then goes up the range because of that, like, so many of them were just like, oh my god, this is cool, and this is cool, and oh, I'd like that, and this sounds interesting. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, one, kudos to you for having a variety of really cool stuff, but also kudos to teachers for being cool and wanting comics.
Hmm. Yeah, I told my parents this earlier today, so I'm sure if they're not on now or they will be. Uh, we had somebody come by the table early on. I think it may have been the Friday, who had pointed to the children's books and said, "I got these children's books like a decade ago or something, and my I'm still a kindergarten teacher, and my kids still ask to read those books like all the time, right?" And that makes me feel great, like that, and I tell my mom that too because it's
Yeah.
something that we've shared together doing the children's books together. So we love hearing that kind of thing. How because you never know when you create something. Yeah, hey, dad. Hey, mom. You never know when you create something if it's going to be resonating with other people. Like we do it for ourselves. I tell people, when I teach, like the creation of the whatever you're creating is for you, and then once it's finished, it goes out there and it's for everybody else. So
Hmm.
appreciate what you're creating when you've created it, and then when it goes out there, you have to hope that people will respond to it, that they'll like it. But that's you don't know. But it is always nice to hear from people that uh, it seems to work. And also, like, we were told with the children's books, like, oh, you weren't supposed to do it the way we did it. You're not supposed to use rhyme and all this kind of stuff. We broke rules not knowing what the rules were. And just a reaffirmation that just I get why the industry, somebody in the industry would say that, because for mass market it may not work, but it still works.
Yeah.
So it should not deter somebody from creating something that supposedly is not the way you're supposed to do it. Like you can do it the way that you want to do it, as long as as I said, as long as it's something that you're passionate about and that you can
Yeah.
appreciate working on while you're working on it. And then when you're done with it, it may resonate with people, it may not, but you know at the very least you can say that you learned something from what you created. But yeah, so it's always really nice to have that kind of feedback from people. um, and then yeah, to have teachers and educators looking for things that they can use for their classrooms or for their kids. And I do try to make sure that I have projects or products that will reflect that. Yeah, Mitch is
Good
we,
words,
we
Mitch.
kind of we kind of well, yeah, he knows, like we when we work on our stories together, we decide to do it the way we want to do it. um
Yeah.
and and I mean saltwater, and that, like, it's a retro style kind of. It wasn't something at the time that we created it. It had like a little bit of an old fashioned type of feel to it. It's
Hmm.
probably the most popular thing. Like when at least like when it comes to comic book stuff, it's for sure one of the most popular things I have on my table. Right? People are
Yeah.
interested in that. So you just maybe at the time something isn't quite popular. But that's never really what it should be about. It should be about doing something that resonates with you and not worrying about whether what you're creating is in vogue at the moment, right? Because we know that,
Nice.
like, there was a time when everybody was creating zombie stories, and I always thought, like, I don't have an interest in that because everybody's doing it. Why should I do it? Like, I want to do something that I'm into now, right?
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Speaking of what you're into now, what are you drawing?
Kind of like, I know right now I'm seeing it as like these I don't know, like a knight, or like somebody that has like a sword, and somebody that's got like an axe or something. They were, if I were to reverse it, which I could probably do, you'd see it a little bit more clearly. Let's see.
Before you flip this, before you flip it so far what I'm seeing again, this is why
Oh, okay.
I like
Yeah,
the
I
idea of
don't have to do
doodling.
that.
Like I do want you to do it, but like what I am seeing, so we've got a person with a sword, right, and they're holding it sort of in front of
Yeah,
themselves, and it looks to me like they're either rocking a single eye patch or sunglasses. Um,
yeah, okay.
and then I'm seeing it in like they've got like pulled back hair and like a big scarf
Yep.
maybe. And then this other person, I thought for a minute it was like a ninja or someone like with a cloth coverings
Yeah,
and they're all protected. And then I see a giant hammer, like a maul or something. That's where I'm at. But please, yeah, feel free to
no,
flip
you
it.
just, and I'm not going to do it because you just described it exactly as you. Yeah, the hammer, it could be a hammer. I haven't really quite made it axe like yet, but you described exactly what it is, right? I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring it out as I'm doing it. I didn't really have any. Yeah, I was like, are these sunglasses? Are these like, is that a patch? I'm not sure. It's but yeah, like you're kind of describing it exactly. This is like maybe a cape, but maybe it is a scarf, right?
Yeah,
And for
I
the
dig
most
it.
part, you got it. Okay, then I don't need to reverse it.
It's cool.
It's clear. It's clear. It just and I shouldn't have even said to reverse it. I should have just let you do it. But yeah, like so going back to, you were talking about that guy Joe who wanted to um, get my opinion on their story, and
Oh yeah, okay.
he approached it the right way, which is he understood my time is valuable. He understood that I was there to sell, and I wasn't necessarily there to be like taking all this time to
Hmm.
give away all my secrets, which as I said, I'm okay with like telling people, how things are done.
I mean,
Um, I'm generally, I don't, when it comes to like critiquing stuff, I don't like doing that because, as I said, it's about, who am I to tell somebody, oh, you don't do that kind of story. Like, I don't want to tell somebody to do or not do something. I can tell them, like with Joe, I'm like, you're handing somebody a stack with your like script, and I'm like, if I were looking at this, I would just want to flip through one or two pages to know what it's about. And
oh cool.
you're giving me a lot of stuff that I'm most likely just going to throw away. So I told him, I said, make the art up first thing up front, with a bit of like a tagline, like a paragraph description of what it is, and then maybe some of the art, so that you're kind of going to hook the viewer right away as to what they're, and it fully rendered, fully finished, like with lettering and stuff.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that you can put like a bit more of a description. And I know that editors may want it in a different way. I'm not an editor, I'm not a publisher, so maybe there's a slightly different way. But that, to me, that's the way. If somebody's showing me something, I want to be able to see right away whether it's interesting or not, and I'm not going to want to read a script, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Now, like if you're pitching to, and I did say this to him too. Whoever you're pitching to, you have to read their criteria online. If a publisher is looking to, if a publisher says we're picking up, pitches, then what are the criteria that they're looking for? You have to follow them
Yeah.
to a T. Um, that's so that may change. What I said to Joe may be different from other, because of what they're looking for.
And they are very serious about that criteria, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You don't want to, because they can, if you can't follow direction, then that means you may not follow direction if you get hired, right? So they don't necessarily want to hire you because of that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going up to somebody like cold at a show, and really their time is very valuable, you want to make sure you can hook them right away. Um, yeah, again, Mitch, same thing. Uh, yeah, like you want to get them like as quickly as possible so they can see what it is, whether they go, oh, well, this is really cool. Okay, you know what? Let's have a conversation some other day, or after the show or something, or maybe even there. I mean, they may be willing to do it there, right? So that was kind of my thing with him. So he was fine with it. I think that, when you're asking for somebody's time, you have to be very aware of making sure that they are available for it, especially when they're there for something else. I mean, it really bugs me when somebody comes up to me, especially like a fellow vendor comes up to me and does not ask. They just go, hey, I'm selling this thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I'm not in front of your table right now. You're in front of my table. I am here to sell. You're not here to sell to me. If I'm interested in something, then you ask me, hey, do I have time? And either A, I'll go to your table, or B, hand me something really quickly and maybe that'll hook me. But I don't really care for being pitched at my table without being asked. So that's that. If anybody's watching and they want to do that, do not. At least with my table, right? Do not come to me with your sales, and because I'm then you're just taking away from what I could be selling, right?
And I mean, realistically, like when you're at a con as a creator and you're tabling, that's your workday. That is the 9 to 5, so to speak, though it is absolutely longer than that. And like you have most likely you have probably paid to be there. So yeah, absolutely. Like you are working. Your goal is sales. I find that to be like wild. I had
it happen this week. I had it happen this past weekend.
Really? See, I've never noticed it. I haven't looked for it though, mind you. Like the luxury that yourself, I want to say last Comic-Con and then Howard this year has afforded me is I can kind of be a specter where I check in on everybody, see if everybody needs water, lunch, stuff like that. But otherwise, I go, I float around, I chat with people and here and there. And when I notice someone come up that looks like a customer in any capacity, I'll disappear and go chat with somebody else and then float on back when I'm ready. But yeah, it's just like that to me is wild that they would be like, hey, do you want to buy this thing? If they were to come up and be like, hey, you know what, I'm a really big fan of your work. I like this, and this that I've read. I'd like to give you a copy of my comic, and if you have time to give me feedback, great. Or, hey, this is what I've done in the past. I'd love to collaborate with you. Have a think about it. Emails in the book, blah, blah, blah. But, like, for them to come up and be like, hey, do you want to buy my book? I'm like, oh.
No, it was a service. It was the buying a service. But, yeah, I have had people, I know that, but not in this show, but I have had people in the past, who do that. They'll go from table to table and go, hey, can I show you my book? And I've been initially I used to be very polite and go, sure. And then I've gone to a point I'm like, I'm sorry, no. Like I had to your point, whether or not like I physically paid for a table, but I had to, like this is, I'm here to make money and I'm not here to buy your book. If you can't afford to get a table, then you need to save up for it.
Right.
If you wanted to give your book for free, again, be a little bit careful. Ask somebody if it's okay. Otherwise, like I have sympathy for your wanting to break into the industry. I was there as well, but you always ask, is it okay? Do you have time? And if the person, if you just kind of push yourself onto them because you think that's the way to get yourself into the industry, it's not. Like that's the opposite of what you want to do. There's still somebody I remember doing that to me. Now they're in the industry. They've made it quite far into the industry. But I remember when they did it, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. It made me go, I don't know if I ever would want to work with that person because if they're that kind of clueless.
Right. Like,
yeah, there's been a couple that have done that, and I've always thought that there was something a bit too eager about them that or maybe not the right word, maybe too um, not aware, not aware of not being able to read people, and that tells me you may have learned at that point, and learned from that as a mistake, and that's fine. I'll give you grace, but it's still it's now you've kind of I'm of the mindset of everybody's 100% in my book. Like when I meet you, you don't have to earn your way with me.
Mm.
You're at 100%. Everybody that comes to my table, but you do something like that I have not a lot of pet peeves, but one or two of them. You do something like that, I remember that you go down in my book, and that
Oh
means
yeah.
that I'm going to be less likely to want to work with you because I think that there's a sign that there's something about that the way you're working that is not the way I'd want to work, right?
Yeah, I mean that's just fair. Um, yeah, like it, stuff like that. Like I knew. Oh, who was it? I forget exactly who it was. It might be Adriano of Pesto Comics, who dude from Niagara puts out quite a few books through Kickstarter. Had him on the show. He's a wonderful guy. I like him quite a bit. Um, but like I've known him to go up to other creators that he likes and be like, "Hey, can I give you my book?" And he gives it to him. He's like, "All right, have a great con. If you want to chat, cool." Um, or just because he'll be tabling, he'll chat people up and he'll be, "Oh, here, you know what? Can we trade books and stuff like that?" Um,
Oh, I just want to I just want to say some trading books is a little bit of a that's a tricky widget. That's a little bit of a tricky widget as well. Um,
hmm,
Only for the fact is that, and I hate to say this, but sometimes people their journey hasn't quite developed,
okay,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so you're giving me something I'm not necessarily going to want to read. I listen. It's amazing that you've created something. I'm so happy for you. If I decide I want to purchase it from you, or if you want to give it to me, that's great. Like that's your choice. I'm not gonna, but I don't ask me to trade. That's a little again because
interesting.
it. Well, I mean, it's to
I know,
me.
I like
That's
that. I like
again.
that.
That's a, and you have to be a bit careful about it too because like if somebody them pretty well and there's a I guess what I'm saying is this: I don't know you and you're asking to trade, versus if I do know you and you're asking to trade. That's a different thing. Like if I've known you for a while, um, and like I. But here's the other thing too. I would rather you offer first, like, hey,
Hmm.
can I buy your book, and then I would like to have the opportunity to say, you know what, your book, I can see, because the other thing too is like you're asking to trade, but maybe the value of what I have is like that kind of. So
Yep,
it creates a
absolutely.
weird awkward type of thing. So it's like if I know what the value of what I have, like what I've paid for it and what I'm selling it for, and I can kind of you've told me like, oh, this is like a $10 book that I'm buying from you, and I'm like, well, I've got to like or that you want to buy for me, I should say. And I'm like, you know what? I really like this. I'm gonna enjoy reading this. If you want, instead of paying me $10, um, we can do this trade so that you know like you're getting So again,
Yeah.
it just depends on the. But I have a little bit of a. I've had that happen too, where I don't know you. You're coming up to me going, "Oh, this is a really cool book. Can I trade my comic for yours?" And I'm like, I don't know what it is that you're going
True.
to
Yeah.
show me. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if it's appropriate. I don't know what the worth of it is. And I don't know who you are. So do I want, like all of these questions. And so you're putting me in an awkward position
Hmm.
that, again, I'm here to sell. I'm not necessarily here. So, but I've had friends of mine who said, "Hey, do we want to trade?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I don't care." So
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not talking about people I know that like I don't really it doesn't really bug me too much. We're good. We're good with each other. It's people I don't know that do that
Oh,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Like that. That's where like I like Adriano's approach, where he'll be like, "Here, can I give you my book because I like your work?" And blah blah blah. I think it's fascinating. And then Mitch has said a couple things here. First off, Mitch Cook, I don't mind trading books with other vendors slash creators. Awesome. And then he says, I am selective though. There you
Well,
go.
yeah,
Again,
like
it's who do you know and what are you comfortable with. It's I feel like it's definitely one of those things where you've got to be in the moment to feel it out. And then we've got Leo. You know the value of your work, but not theirs. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and I've been with like Mitch and I have because you talk with a vendor all weekend, and you're getting us. They're like, oh man, I really love your work. I love what you've got there. This is I think I want to pick up one of your books, and you go, no, I love your work. Like this is amazing. And then so it's kind of that's where that kind of comes in. You're going,
Yeah.
are you okay if we do a trade? Because like what your book is 20 bucks. Well, this is you said you like my comics. Here's $20 worth of comics that I can or whatever. So again, it's as I said, trading is fine. You got to kind of get to know the people and feel it. I've had too
Hmm.
many people just approach me out of the blue, and they have a stack of their books, and they're like, I really like this. Can I trade my comic for yours? I'm like, I don't know who you
Hmm.
are, right? I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. Like, I don't feel comfortable with that. No, right? So
Sensible. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's interesting because like one thing I'm appreciating about this is the conscientiousness that you're having regarding one protecting your own work and your own value because the amount of time and the effort that goes into what you create, but also the other person, right? Because if they're trying to trade you a book that they would sell for $20 for a book that you might sell for 10. Mitch has got to run. Cheers. Have a good one, Mitch. Thanks for stopping by.
see you, bud.
Um, I I really do appreciate that. Like you're looking out for the other person as well. Um, and yeah,
Or
it's something I've noticed in the comics community a lot, where people are like, "I want to make sure that you're not getting shortchanged." Like I myself have done it, where I've gone up and talked with people, and they're like, "Oh, hey, do you want to copy my book?" And I'm like, "Hey, how much is it?" And they're like, "Oh, just have it." And I will actually, maybe to their annoyance, double check and be like, "Are you sure? I don't mind paying for it. I want to support you." And I've had them go, "Ah, no, no, you're fine." Other people, it's straight, yeah, if you'd like to copy the book, it's X number of dollars, which again I have no problem with. So if you've ever done that to me in the past and you weren't sure how I felt about it, absolutely, that is your product, your thing that you've created. I'm happy to buy it. If you'd like to give it to me for free, fantastic. But like, yeah, I don't feel sore about paying for things that people take an extremely hard amount of work into making. It's just, I don't know, it's the whole point, right? It's why I do this. Spread the word, get more comics made, um, help people tap into what they want to make and not feel weird about it. Um, and God, if we could encapsulate and record how to not feel like a. Oh, there's a word for it, and my brain just totally. Imposter syndrome? I think that's the word. Yeah, if we could record how to get rid of that, that'd be great.
yeah, we're all of us are all of us. Like I remember there was an episode of the X Files, and I never really watched that show too much, but the one episode I saw was really cool where this person um, had the ability to read other people's minds. And I can't remember if it was Scully or Mulder. Like one of them was like, well, what is the thing that people you get the most from people like when you read their mind? And it's the answer was we think that those people are thinking about us, but in actuality, they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about, is this person like me? Am I doing, am I acting weird? So we all have this imposter syndrome. We're all thinking the same thing. And in reality, so when we think that somebody in front of us is thinking something's bad about us, they're thinking something, oh, that person must be looking at me because I'm thinking, so it's that kind of thing. So I took that with heart, and I thought, you know what, 99% of people that most likely aren't thinking about us at that very moment, right? It just
Yeah.
they're thinking about their own insecurities, right? So when you think about it in that way, then you can kind of go, okay, you know what, I'm probably good. If I said something weird, if I'm a bit awkward, then if they notice it, they'll probably forget it, right?
Yeah,
So,
100%.
um, but yeah, I think so. So, see, we talked about the types of people that came to the table, like the sales in a bit more intimate way. Um, what were some of the things that you like noticed, or some of your interactions that you had while you were there?
Well, I will say so. Like a quick recap of my day, just for context. I will make this quick, I promise. So I arrived with Howard and yourself. Actually, we ran into you on the street before going into the con, and then Becca
Hmm.
Kinsey, um, and yeah, we sort of chatted. We went in, got to the tables, started setting up tables. And then I took a little wander, just through a few aisles, um, and then I met up with some friends who just had regular passes. So at about like 9:50, I showed up where they were holding everyone back, and my friend called me. He's like, "Hey, where are you?" And I'm like, "Hey, dude, where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm by the info booth." And I looked across the way. I found the booth, and I looked over and I saw him because, like myself, he's a tall ginger. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm like, turn around, dude. And he turned around and I was waving at him. He's like, oh, hey. So, but yeah, I hooked up with him and his sister, actually, who was cosplaying as a Transformer. Um, I'm going to get this wrong. So if he or she sees this, I am sorry. I believe it was RC. I feel like I'm very wrong about that. Um, it was a cool cosplay. I liked it. But yeah, we then, from like 10 o'clock until I want to say noonish or 12:30 ish. Basically walked all the aisles, which is kind of refreshing because I've taken a break for about a year now for any kind of con other than like the Wayside show in Newmarket and stuff, like the little stuff,
Hmm.
or the smaller shows, I should say. But I haven't gone to like Fan Expo or Toronto Comic Con. So yeah, we were just doing the aisles, just sort of seeing all the stuff. A lot of really pretty dice, um, interesting swords, some Lego. Which, I mean, big fan of Lego, though I haven't built it in years. Just kind of stuff like that. And then yeah, my back started hurting, so I came and sat with Howard and yourself, chilled out for like 30 minutes, talked to some people walking by. And then yeah, I was sort of up and about, floating around, talking to other artists, sitting with folks, watching tables, getting water. And I think one of the things that I had started paying attention to was actually the amount of conversations, now that I think about it, that yourself, Howard, another one of the artists that was there, Doug Knight, who's Cross Eye Comics, um, and I would say Dave Pretorius as well, Red Eye Draws on Instagram. He makes Kaiju Panic, actually written by his son. Um, talking
Hmm.
about kids written or books written by kids and young people.
Yeah.
And yeah, just sort of hanging out. But yeah, what I noticed was like, so as we mentioned, you talk with folks all the time. What I noticed in Doug's case, he is visually impaired. I believe the technical term is severely visually impaired. Um, so what he does, because he doesn't like to sit, he's actually a really high energy
Yep.
guy. He has this really cool retractable seat, though he's not
Yeah.
sitting
They
on it.
told
He's
me
put it
about
on
it.
his table. Yeah, he's put it on his table. He's got this drawing thing, so he can put his hands right on what he's drawing, and it's an acrylic thing. Yeah, and he's just doing his thing on covers. And I've never seen him draw on anything except a blank cover, which I think is just kind of cool. So yeah, he was drawing when I ran into him. A Ninja Turtle mixed with the Thing, which is
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, like people would come up with him, and he's just a chatty dude like yourself. He's like, "Hey, how's it going, folks? Enjoying the show?" Um, but like, just he's very relaxed. I don't think he's as concerned about sales as you are, though he is. And a lot of his stuff is all like his custom drawing on covers, so he'll sell it for 50, 60, 80. One of them he had for like $150. Um, but like the conversations he was getting into were like, uh, in particular, a woman had come up to him, and one of his covers for his book called Chiasm is actually an MRI image of his head, because
Hmm.
he has a tumor on his optic chiasm. It is in control and all that stuff, but that book is basically a retelling of his life, but instead of chemo, it's alien powers and stuff. So he really
Right.
went fun with it. And she asked about it because she was curious. He mentioned it, and then she was like, "Oh, well, I'm dealing with cancer, and I've done these treatments." And they just started like
Mhm.
20
Oh, that's
minutes
cool.
talking. Yeah, and like I hadn't noticed it really, because we've talked about it, and now to see him do it, and like other people would come up that were just curious about comics who've not into it, and he would just chat with them. When I was sitting with Dave Pretorius, or again Red Eye Draws, um, uh, a woman actually came up with her son, and the kid was like, "Oh my god, look at all this cool stuff!" Right? Because Dave, what he draws is like, well, Kaiju Panics, where there's dinosaurs and monsters, and there's no words, so it's a totally
Hmm.
wordless book. It's just these monsters duking it out, basically. But there's quite a bit of story to it. You just have to, you know, watch for it. Um, and so like the woman was asking him like, so you can like really do this. This is the thing you can do. Like
Hmm.
as though comics and or art was like, oh my god, you can actually be an artist. Um, because clearly, like I feel like this kid was like interested, but maybe she was concerned about it. So yeah, Dave like
Hmm.
just yeah, he's like, this is how I do my whole process. This is how I make money. And he had no problem just sort of being open about it. And I
Awesome.
think yeah, it made me really appreciate one, like, yes, at a con, you can get all these connections and you can meet new artists and find new books. But the amount of communication that happens and building of sort of goodwill, understanding within the community and the people who are in it,
Hmm.
that really impressed me. I also ran into. I'm gonna hopefully not say her name wrong. Diana McCallum, who writes "Sex Lives of
Oh,
Superheroes."
I saw that. Oh, I sorry, I saw that from you. That's why.
Yeah, and just sort of talked with her. Basically, she made the From Superheroes stuff on Instagram, and it's like funny gags, text messages between superheroes and whatever. And then she kind of kept going and
Hmm, that's cool.
made this, which I haven't read it yet. I find it fascinating. Um, but yeah, it was just cool to sort of overhear what they were talking about, as well as because of like our show, my other show, Wednesday Night Reviews, where I interview everybody. I loved getting to not eavesdrop, but just sort of hear the community of the artists and the writers and the creators chatting. Not so much like what they were chatting about, but just that they were chatting. I really enjoyed
Hmm.
that. And it kind of rekindled my love of comics, the community, and with absolute thanks to Howard. So, Howard, if you see this as a clip, if you catch this at a later date, whatever, thank you. I am going to be applying to do multiple panels for Fan Expo, as well as just like volunteer to be a moderator. Because
Awesome.
yeah, I've always liked doing it. I've done a few in the past, and I get like a big, yeah, I'm excited about it. It's something I'm into. But I want to be more proactive with it.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
that's
So
good.
that's yeah, that was sort of my takeaway. It was good to be in it, and also I have because of the show, I think, and a bit because of you. Um, I've gone through my entire comics collection, and so all of those boxes are going to be sold and or
Good.
donated.
Right.
Um, like I've gone through it and everything that like event books, stuff that I was just at the time. Oh, this looks kind of cool, but I'm not like attached to or
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to read again. I would
Yeah.
rather if I can get a little bit of money back for it, great, and if someone else can enjoy it, even better. So yeah, and I think I get a little bit of that from you, Keith, because many times when I've asked, what do you read? You're like, I only read indie. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to give up specifically Batman, Detective, and Daredevil yet.
No, I do
But,
read uh, old like Marvel and DC.
yeah.
I don't collect them anymore. I have them and I reread them, or I get if I don't if kind of what you're doing. If I'm not enjoying them, I will sell them or give them away.
Yeah,
So, but
exactly.
yeah, I'm not actively getting a monthly anymore, but I still have like Marvel and DC. I've got loads of.
Oh, yeah, well, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm going through and just, evaluating what do I actually want, what do I care about, and cutting it down. It scared me when I emptied 3 long boxes, and I was like, oh my god. Because it's just space.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's been kind of an interesting outcome as well of the show.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about you? Like, I appreciate for you, it's not like you've been away from it for terribly long or whatever. Right? This is business as usual. Um, what did you find? I guess in your experience, what makes it different? What is unique about Comic Con Toronto compared to say other shows?
Um. Well, I mean, I guess it's probably the one where I was the guest. I was a guest early on.
Oh,
So
very cool.
yeah, like I've been doing it as a guest for a long time at this point, for over a decade. So, um, it I get it's nice to be able to have like the community of creators that I know that we like I see them frequently throughout different shows, but it's always nice to be able to catch up, see what they're working on. Um, when I have the time in the morning or when it gets like a bit quiet sometime throughout the show to go and explore and see what everybody else is working on, or just to catch up with people, just to have conversations. And I've gotten
Mm-hmm.
to a point where I know who I can have a good, meaningful conversation with somebody for like 5 or 10 minutes, and as opposed to like the pleasantries, the small talk with some people, which I'm not that kind of person. Unfortunately, I like having like deep, meaningful conversations. I'm not good with like, so it's a nice day today, right? That's just not my thing. So I like to go to see my friends that I can do that with, and maybe I don't see them very often throughout the year, but that's a great way to at least if I'm going to see them and spend that kind of time with them, that I can have that kind of conversation, and then um, just being able to. I think that's probably it. Just being able to have like seeing people I've seen quite every year, maybe once a year at that show, whether they're somebody coming in as a fan or somebody who's maybe was a fan and now they're tabling for the first time,
Oh,
right? And
that's
so I
got to be
like
cool.
seeing that kind of evolution with people, or just making these new connections with people that they're in school and they want to do comic books, or somebody who's never read a comic before and I get to introduce them to something. um,
That's
you know
wild.
yeah, like, so I mean, and that happens at other shows too, but I think because I'm from the area, it's a little bit, it resonates a little bit more with people because it's like, oh, I can do this, right? um, and Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just that kind of being able to add another, just being able to have depth, and positivity, and really good energy for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
To kind of fill your well a bit, right?
Yeah, it is not being on the end of pitching, right? Because I'm, like I said, I'm there, I'm floating around. I was talking with, I think it was Sean Daly, um, and like I said, someone was coming up. He's like, "Oh, I'll go be a Spectre. I'll see you around." And I floated away and whatever. But even just the act of me like doing that, walking, checking in on people, saying hi, chit chatting, for the whole day. So from say 9. I just think that I ran into you to. I think we left at like what that show closed at 8 o'clock, or was it 10? No, it was 8.
It was 8. It was 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So say 8:30. Just doing that, I was like, oh my god, like I am tired.
Yep.
So when I think about someone like yourself who is actively you're pitching, you're talking to people, um, and just like again keeping at it, right? Axe to the grindstone, making it happen. Like woof, mad respect, Keith, for being able to do it consistently like you do, because like that's so hard. Like just watching you do that was like exhausting, and you're doing it.
It takes me like on Monday I'm like still in that mode.
Yeah.
So even if I take the day off on the Monday, which I did, I'm still like on the high. It's hard for me to. And then
Yeah.
Tuesday, when I have to go back to my daily work, I'm like, oh man, my brain is just like fried. I was, I had meetings and I was just apologizing to people, going, my brain is kind of fried right now. So, like forgive me if I'm not coherent. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just a 3-day show. Like Fan Expo, which is a 4-day show, is really intense. Or if I do an away show, like when I do something with Mitch, where I go away for the week almost, and that's lots of flying and driving, and then 3 days of show, and then more flying. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It can be quite a lot. That's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of those types of shows. There's some people, that's what they do. They do like 30, 40 shows a year,
Oh my
and they're
god.
flying all the time. And I know a few people that are salesmen like I am, that you have to have an incredible amount of energy to do that. And I give props for people like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot for sure. And like you get out of it, we put into it, right? So
Yeah.
if you are sitting around the whole time and just like on your phone, you're not necessarily going to go get a lot out of it. If you're interacting with people and seeing, I mean, one of the things that I wish, like I'm a little envious of what you were able to do, is actually walk around and get a good lay of the land and have good conversations with people at a more reasonable pace. That, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I mean, I haven't, I did that once last year for a show, but, or no, yeah, I think so. Or a couple years ago I did that. And it was nice to be able to just like kind of chat with people at a
Yeah.
much more, but yeah, you get what you get what you put into it, right?
Yeah. Keith, we are at like we got like a minute and 10 seconds left or so. I'm gonna try
Okay.
and put your drawing full screen and see if our audio still comes on. I'll be able to see it. And maybe you could walk us through some of this, because this is super cool. So here we go. Yes, so our audio is still here. Keith, walk us through this. Like this is cool.
Yeah, so it's like the guy that's the taller, the one that's further behind, behind. He's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm still trying to work out his hair, but he's like holding a sword. He's got like a funky looking hair. I don't know if he's got like a bun or something. He's got like a mustache and a bunch of lines in his face. He's got like chains that are around his neck that connect with like whatever like furry type of cape he's wearing,
Ah, okay.
right? And then the guy that's in front of him, I think I developed him a little bit more. So he's almost like wearing like I don't know if he's got like a mask on or if it's just like a scarf around his eyes because he can't see. And then he's got a helmet on. He's got like a beard, and he's holding some kind of like an axe type of, maybe it's a hammer axe or something. I don't know, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it came out pretty cool actually. Like I mean, it may not be to do this in black and white or to do this in reverse. It's not the easiest thing to make so that people can see what it is, but I'm liking it. I like what kind of came from it. So
Right on. Well, I definitely am enjoying it. Um, yeah, that is like writing. That is a visual writing prompt. That's super cool.
mhm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Uh, I might send you something later. I don't know. We'll find out. But I dig it. And
Oh, you mean
Keith,
to write something? It's to
yeah, that
go
is
with
a
it.
visual writing prompt to me. My
Yeah,
brain is like,
sure.
oh, these cool. So yes, I might send something your way.
Sure.
That being said, Keith, we are. Well, actually, we're over our hour now. So absolutely, Keith. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to co-host the show with me, to draw, to chat comics, the industry, the community, of course, Toronto Comic Con, and yeah, I can't wait to do this again in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, yeah, and I know we were talking to Howard about potentially bringing him on. Maybe we'll have that conversation. There's a couple other people like Mitch and a couple other people I wouldn't mind bringing on, but like I'd like to space them out. But look for that for maybe having another guest in sometime in the future.
Absolutely, I think we should do it. And yes, Keith, thank you, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2 now. Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries. You need answers.